Hey, everybody. Oscar Duran here from Black Sailboat, shooting here with my brother Mikey. We say, what's up, Mike?
What's up?
We are proud to be here in Fremont, Nebraska, Fremont, USA, 5th and Broad.
The pod from 5th and Broad.
You really like that name, don't you?
I think it could be the new name for our podcast, pretty much. Yeah, I do like it, is the answer.
Yeah, it's a snazzy catchphrase for sure. I don't think we're going to change it, though. We like being on the wrong side of Broad.
And we are on 5th and Broad. And this week, we're a little further away from the street. We're not recording. Oscar likes to say shooting. Is that what you say?
I do say shooting. I like shooting.
Yeah. We're shooting from a little further away from the window than we normally are. There might be some not as much sounds of cars and other activity outside the window. So
yeah, all this elusive other activity.
Yeah. So for our fans who listen for the cars that pass by, hit us up. You know, we can send you an alternate version where we kind of add in some car sounds in post.
I think that was a plane, wasn't it?
It did, yeah.
It sounded like a plane.
It's something like that, though.
Well, and to be fair, we're not going to keep it over here. We're going to move back to, we like being by the window where we can see people. I can see the window. Mikey definitely can.
I cannot.
If you tuned in last week, we kind of had this flood situation going in. Honestly, we're just being lazy. We got a temporary critical crisis cleanup registration center going on in the gallery level, so
yeah,
we just didn't want to move the tables back and forth.
Yeah. So should we get into it, or
let's start?
Should we just talk about whatever?
No.
What'd you have for lunch today?
Oh, dude, I went to Guerrero. You're just gonna play with paper right in the microphone?
Sorry.
No, I mean, we went to Guerrero. It's this Mexican restaurant that's super dope. Some of the volunteers were in here, and we just stuffed our faces.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, but I kind of am feeling like I need a nap now. Was that your weekly hypothetical? Because we got to jump in.
Yeah. What did you have for lunch? It's not hypothetical. I had a salad, and that's not even interesting in
I know. I didn't even
comparison
ask.
to what you've talked to. If you care,
do
you even care?
I do care. I would have guessed you had a salad though, or Taco Bell. I mean.
Yeah. I had Taco Bell yesterday. We're talking this week. You'll never guess. We're getting back into a little bit of a housing discussion. And particularly, we're going to talk about density a little bit. We read an article. Actually, not really an article. Strong Towns has this part of the website where readers can submit questions, and then they kind of provide some answers to it. And this was a question that was, I just want to make sure I get it right here. How do I pitch gradual upzoning to my city? And then the response to that question is kind of where we're starting our conversation. So if you Google, we can link it, but if you Google like Strong Towns gradual upzoning or something of that nature, you'll find it. And within that answer that Strong Towns provided, and I feel bad because I didn't see if there was like a writer that we should be crediting right now. We'll add that to the description if we can. But within that, there's a lot of information, and there's, I don't know, like 12 like hyperlinks to other articles for further information. So it's a good starting point for the topic, and there's a lot of kind of other places you can go from reading it if they pique your interest. But we're going to talk about it.
I mean, if you did that though, because there's a lot of them, you need to commit a couple hours to this.
We were gonna do it, but
there's a grip of articles.
Yeah, we just didn't.
I mean, which is cool. I usually don't. I'll probably stay away from this format for myself, but it's cool.
What is that about?
No, I don't know. It's just, you know me. I have a short attention span.
So this is a new segment called Shade.
Throwing shade. No, but it was good. So I got to know, there's a lot of areas we can go with this.
Yeah.
Why did you pick this one for you? What jumped out?
For me personally, I like work and interact in an environment in Omaha where zoning changes and a push for density are kind of at the forefront of a lot of conversation. And that conversation goes a lot of different ways. Even within, like, you might have 20 people who agree on, like, the idea of increasing density, of changing zoning regulations. But within those 20 people, there might be like 20 different ideas of like where to go from here with that idea. How do we make it happen? So the question of how do I pitch it to my city is what was initially interesting to me, because where I've seen it go is like, I'm going to go to city council and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to convince a city councilman to introduce it. I'm going to take it to Facebook. I'm going to go to, 500 millennials of Omaha, this gross cesspool Facebook group that we have in Omaha. There's a lot of different places, and there's not like to me, there's not really like one like concerted effort in Omaha towards making this happen. So what initially piqued my interest is just the question, and then also like, well, like when you say how do I pitch it to my city, what does pitch it to my city mean?
Well, to me, like they're talking a lot about. Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't close enough.
Sorry, yeah, I'm producing and hosting.
We're sensitive.
Super talented.
We're running a lot of directions today.
It's been a rough week.
We're loving it though. To me, I think the reason they're doing it is like, and the thing I liked about it, and I agree, the whole idea of upzoning is to go against like these, I don't know what the right word is, but these old policies that restricted. I mean, there were things purposely. It was great that it drawed a correlation to like, okay, bring it in my context of Fremont. We talked about this a couple podcasts away ago. Restrictive parking requirements, saying, well, downtown Fremont right now, they threw that out the board a couple of UDCs ago. That's a type of upzoning, so that we can get more density. So one less barrier. So I'm a very big proponent of doing things like that.
Yeah. What do you think about, there was one, and it was a link, it wasn't as blanket as it's going to sound. There was kind of one sentence in the article that just said density isn't a good metric, and it was referencing research, but density isn't a good metric of like of a reason
to do it,
something good, or something.
Well,
I don't know,
and I agree with that. I mean, because a lot of times people are going to be like, "Oh man, the way we get this place is more dense." Well, yeah, no. I mean, yes, I get that, right? Like Cabrini Green was dense. I mean, that didn't work out too well. But I think it's more talking about like, okay, you need a plan. And they mentioned this in an article, like across the board, right? To do it and talk about this incremental growth of a community. And I think that's important too. So
I think in terms of like an area, if you talk about increasing density of an area, you're kind of, except for some factors, you're kind of talking about like redevelopment. And so what is like you could look at like this like suburban part of your neighborhood or your city, like a suburban neighborhood on the on the outskirts of your city, and say like, well, we need to increase density across the board. How do we increase density here? Well, you can't really just, what would you do to increase density in a non-dense place unless you have an opportunity for redevelopment? And I don't know if I missed that, but I didn't really get that from reading this answer to the question.
If I understand you, okay, I think in my mind the answer to the first question though, it's more like you would go for where density seems like it's logical to happen. And so I do think like
possible.
When I think the article would say, what's the next step? I don't think it'd say where it's possible. I think it would say counter to that. And it's not said that, but they're trying to go against that model. I like that you're talking about redevelopment, but then, new development is usually what they're talking about. And then in terms of incremental growth, they're saying like, hey, you don't just shoot up from a single family house to a 10-story condo building. I think there was like this little cool picture. I think that's the thing I focused on the most. There was this little chart, and I'll describe the chart. On the left, there's a little single family shotgun house. It looks like 980 square feet, I would guess. Next to it, there's this big empty space. And then the next parcel and then the parcel on the right is this 10-story condo building that probably, I mean, by my estimates, would probably have 28, 36 units in it. And then in the middle, it says, what's this worth? Right. What's this value of this property worth?
Yeah, that is interesting, and I for sure look at that.
Yeah.
And I guess like, I don't know. I should think about how I want to say things before I start saying that. I think like what I mean to say is like that doesn't work at all. Like it's like you're not gonna buy a single family house in a whole area of single family houses and tear it down and put a 10-story condo there anyways. And so for me, like zoning problems are more prevalent, I think, in Omaha in redevelopment, like in terms of like lot sizes and what we can put here, like as we come back in. And we're in like a sprawled out area that, in my opinion, needs to stop sprawling and reinvest in areas that have been already quote unquote developed, which is why I'm interested in the redevelopment side of it.
Well, and the thing I focused on again was more like the broad perspective and saying like, hey, let's not look ourselves in. And I'm all about having a 10, 30, 40-year dream or vision of it, long-range strategic plan for a city. I'm not knocking on that.
Yeah.
But don't lock yourself in. I mean, I've had debates with planning departments before about these dope CDC or what do they call them? Overlay districts. But the article also brought up a few things like, okay, if we're going to do it though, be open to where density naturally starts to begin to happen. And then it started talking about how we go, communities grow in these cycles already. And so it started talking about accessory dwelling units. And I know you're really interested in those. You brought them up a few times.
Yeah.
You know?
This article mentions accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, as the cool kids in the know refer to them as.
I do.
And it mentions how it's a no-brainer to legalize them. And to me, it is a no-brainer to legalize them. And when I read that, I think, but not necessarily an answer to a housing affordability problem across the board to me. And they did say that later in the article, to their credit. I'm not.
What was cool, we had a side conversation I'd like to bring up though, because, and this isn't a critique or anything, but you were like, you didn't know. I think some people, when they're newer to if they haven't done housing a little bit longer, lived in a wider parts of the city, they might not have seen some of this. And so when you hear the term ADUs, some people start thinking about these smaller, new mini houses or like these apartments above garages, which are traditional. You're seeing a lot of those jump out. But then like there's parts of Omaha, and we talked about them, where I know there's old ADUs that were big in the 30s and 40s. And there's not a lot of them anymore. Maybe that's strong, but there used to be. My aunt used to have one. And I would say they do help with affordability because, shoot, I lived in an ADU during college. So did my cousins, and it was behind my tia's house. And that's what made it affordable. We wanted to be close to downtown, and this is before you had all those condos downtown.
Right. Sure, I don't think they don't help. I think they do help, and I think they are a part of the answer. But outside of existing ones, there's a lot that has to go into like having them. Like if I legalize or zone your district where you have a house on a lot, like that's like there's a long way to go still. Like I need you as a homeowner to want one, or to see one as a business opportunity, or to have some type of, I don't know, a tax credit that you can get for making one, or have some assistance with running utilities to it or something like that. And then you have to be comfortable with having family or a stranger or an Airbnb or whatever you do in that ADU. So I think like I'm not anti-ADU. I'm just like anti the let's put our housing fight towards making ADUs happen, because I think it is beneficial. Just don't think it's wholly beneficial in solving the problem by itself.
Yeah. I got the impression that the article is more using like ADUs as one of the examples of a type of upzoning redesign change that could help change change and accommodate the growing nature of a community, of a neighborhood.
Mhm.
I think use neighborhood like a few times.
Yeah.
So then again, it also talks about parking requirements, ADUs. It talks about height limits, building limits. And it's just like, I want to reference that silly little article, that picture again. And that's not silly. I liked it. It was cute. It was like cartoony. And actually, the house, now that had said $200,000 on it, and the building I think was like 5.8 million. And then it says, "What's this vacant lot worth?" And like to me, I just keep going back to that because
in between
them, and I'm like, man, well, I wonder what neighborhood it's in. And honestly, if there's not a parking requirement, that lot's worth a lot to the owner of that 10-story apartment building because they need another parking lot, right?
Yeah.
But that house, I was worried. It said 200,000. I don't think it's worth 200,000 because I'll tell you, as a person trying to sell a single family home, maybe it is, but it probably would cash flow enough for 200. But in terms of somebody that actually want to live in it, like as a homeowner, nobody wants to have a home next to a parking lot or especially a 10-unit apartment building. Right. So you need these buffer zones, and which is cool as I think about it. Like in my mind, I'm also thinking about like, oh, it's a bummer when you go in a neighborhood and it's like R1, right? I don't know. I don't know if this is the same in every community. I'm not a planner, but usually R1 is the most restrictive for, and it's like only these big, wide residential lots. And usually you don't have a lot of R1 in your urban core. You have like R2s, R3s, from what I've seen, at least in the cities that I've looked at. What do they call that? Land use. Not land use. Help me out here.
What?
I can't think of the term. It doesn't matter.
I feel like
R1, R4, R3.
Zoning.
Zoning. Yeah. When you're looking at zones, zone descriptions. So in my mind, it's like, okay, an R1 wouldn't allow for an accessory dwelling unit, right? Just by nature of it. But they're saying, hey, if a community's growing and we want to increase, don't do it just for the sake of density. Do it for the sake of the community just needing this at this time. But don't be scared to say, you know what? It's time to say, let's do R2 now. And they'll be like, oh, but what about these big setbacks? And I don't know.
Well, that's kind of like the gradual nature of what they're talking about. Like, how do I pitch for? So, in the question, it's not just upzoning. Like, gradual is the other. What is that? An adverb, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, to be doing it slowly, because what he's saying, you can't drop, if you do drop that condo building next to that $200,000 house, it's for the market to decide in the interest in that house now what it's worth. Like, would you want to buy it and live it there? Which is why why I initially brought up the point of like redevelopment. Like, how do you not restrict what happens on vacant lots or smaller vacant lots?
Well, and it's so different because then I think back, when we started doing housing in South Omaha, I remember there was no Chodos down there or Housing Works really doing a lot of housing work at an affordable level. But we had 6 groups up in North. And we were like, okay, how do we do this? And South O had these different challenges. One being occupancy, like you don't have a lot of vacant land down there. But 2, it was so dense in its formation because it was called this Magic City, and a lot of worker style houses, these small 50-foot, some were 45 feet wide lots. So I think back in NCE, Neighborhood Conservation Enhancement Overlay. I said I was going to say CDC, but so those are kind of cool. They were a pain. I fought one on 10th Street that we helped build because it didn't fit. But then I remember, it's kind of funny. We sold the house. There's this house we built on 20th Street and in Deer Park, and it was a demo we did, right? And the old house was on the property line. It was 45 feet. But when we built the new one, we couldn't get a variance. And so the new development requirements made us have these setbacks away from the lot line. So it's a cute house, and the family loves it. But now what we have is this 20-foot wide house and with setbacks, right? And so you might not think, like, 20 feet is not bad. Well, 20 feet with like interior walls, exterior walls. I mean, like, it feels, when you get inside a 20-foot wide house, it's long and 100 feet deep.
It's like a big hallway when you walk in.
It kind of feels that way, yeah. But row houses, I think a standard row house was probably wider than 20, but a row house probably 24. But so we had to accommodate this to new building standards, but it's because of these weird overlays. But rewind, we finally got an NCE overlay approved like as a neighborhood, like 8 months or 10 months later after we finally finished that house, which now we could build to the, if we re-overlaid the house, if we've been able to wait a little bit, we could have built it to the setbacks now. So it's cool. And like, you're like, okay, let's start rethinking this. Let's not lock ourselves in, because we need it. And ended up there. We put a 2-story house. It used to be a single level, you know?
Yeah. So to me, I think can wrap all those things in to a policy going forward. If you're going to create one that allows for more density, or even if there is something, even if there are, if you have like a form-based code, or you have different things that, you know, your regulations are to match what's there already. But you can't say, like, in that instance, it's kind of dumb to say, like, no, you can't build here because of the width of this lot. But it's also dumb to say that you can't put a certain type of thing here. Like, and this, like, conversation about, like, the missing middle and duplexes and triplexes, which I called a triplex earlier and was
Triplex.
instantly corrected on.
I was teasing. It wasn't correct.
Why not wrap all of those into your zoning policy going forward and have your fight be something that works for everything? So it's like I said, I'm not anti like any one like fight, but I know how hard it is. And like when you say like pitch to a city means a lot of things. Like in Omaha, like pitch to a city means like pitching to a council where 4 of the 7 members are in a pretty low dense area that's desirable for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. And they're saying, I mean, I guess the author is kind of agreeing with the premise that the more dense a place becomes, the more affordable units come. Yeah, I guess we can go move to Soho and find out.
Yeah.
That's shade. I don't mean that. I'm not.
Wow.
I'm not talking smack. I agree with it.
Throwing
I agree with it.
segment of
But-
this podcast.
I'm in a mood. No, I really don't agree with that. But I mean, it was just a funny opportunity because it really applies in what community. And this article is really saying that well. It depends on what community you're looking at. And actually, I think it says somewhere in there that, like, again, density doesn't mean affordability, right? But this person's asking this question to Strongtown, says, hey, how do I pitch it? Upzoning for more affordable housing and get them away from it. So they're making it seem like it's 2 different sides of a coin. Mm-hmm. You're not affordable, and if you're on affordability, that means you're pro upzoning. And they're saying, I think Strongtowns is saying no. Right? I feel like that now that I'm thinking it out. I think they're saying like, hey,
I
there's
think they're
more.
saying not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
And then we didn't read the other 13 articles. So
We will.
we definitely
weeks
will.
from now, we'll revisit this.
I'm not joking. Actually, I make fun of it. Like, I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
I don't sleep a lot. So I'm going to get up early and probably read them tomorrow because I'm excited about it. But then I started thinking about, like, okay, this is who's asking this question? They're asking Strongtowns because, you know, they're pros. Most of them are probably architects, engineers, planners themselves, right? Mm-hmm. We're the only, like, neighborhood people that don't know a lot, that are just talking about door knocking and
trying to make any sense of
trying to make any
like
sense
this.
of it. So the person asking this question is not the regular neighbor, not the community revitalist like us. It's probably a more professional person saying, hey, I need or developer, right? And saying, I want more affordability. These things are restricting me.
Well, what about from the development side? I was thinking about it too. Every time I listen back to this podcast, I notice these parts where I'm trying to phrase a question and take too long to figure it out. So I'm just going to jump into it. Changing the zoning is one thing. Like, you need someone to want to do it there, too, right? So it's like that's 2 kind of different things that are coming together. Like, you could say, like, well, guess what? Now you can build this type of thing here. But it's like a lot, like, from what I see in Omaha, like, a lot of times, like, the zoning change starts because the developer
Yeah.
wants to do something there. So just because you, as whoever you are, want something there, like just making it happen doesn't make it like attractive or like profitable for someone. So how do you do that? You know, how do you say like, hey, guess what? Here's this new place, or this part of town is now zoned differently because we as residents or a advocacy group or a neighborhood association want to see more like density here. Like how do you know it works in the
Yeah.
free market, you know?
And I think that's why they use, and I don't know, at least in Omaha, my experience is like they're trying to get these ACIs, NCE overlays, areas of civic importance, neighborhood conservation enhancement overlays, so that they can say, okay, like we ended up applying it to the neighborhoods we were looking at to say, okay. And then we did a house like one block over when I mentioned that little Sierra house where we built on the setback lines. And say, okay, but you have to apply to say, oh, I want this house to now use this designation. You know, and then still grandfathered in, but I think it's tools like that. You know, I brought this up once before. In Houston, their planning doesn't really address land use. And I've never, I'm from Texas, and Houston's my least favorite town in Texas. I don't go there a lot. And it's nothing about it. I haven't been there a lot. But I've heard the thing that intrigues me a lot is that they don't have a rule for that. Or they consciously don't have one for land use. So you can mix different, you could probably have that single family residence next to a 10-story building. I don't know if there's a lot of them. And I wonder what other communities, if anybody's listening that knows about this, it'd be cool if you chimed in and just let us know if you know of other communities that do it. And what's that look like? Because I'm all about trying new things too. Like a simple solution to me is like, well, fine, look, maybe we don't even need land use things. Some cities do it. Houston's huge. But it's there's some people who will be like, that's crazy. There's no order. They've been around for a minute. You know?
It sounds messy, kind of like.
But we've never been there.
But yeah, just as a general thought, like just if you were playing SimCity or something, and you're just like, fire station, house, you know, library, high school, house, apartment, and I feel like that wouldn't be like attractive to that many people. But to me, that's where, you know, mixed use development comes in. And the fight is because this is retroactive, like in a lot of ways towards what's happened because of zoning. So in some ways, like, yeah, I could see not having regulations being good, but at the end of the day, like if you're going on the same trajectory of development, it might go the same way either way.
Yeah, and this article will probably say, well, that's also not going to something like that's not gradual upzoning.
No,
because it also
pretty
say
not
it doesn't say
gradual.
how do you pitch upzoning. It says how do we pitch gradual upzoning.
Yeah.
So this person must be in an environment where they know they got to be patient, and which is everywhere, right? We didn't read the question itself, but yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think?
That's what I was going to ask you.
Oh.
How would you pitch gradual upzoning to a city?
I don't know if I would be pitching gradual upzoning on like a citywide level. I think I would be I think I would be pitching for any type of use in any area that fits in with the area in terms of a lot of factors that are a different discussion, but also with like a kind of resident-led kind of like decision-making process of what happens in the future of the area. Because I don't really know, like a gradual upzoning to me in this article kind of only applies to like quote unquote I don't know if this is even a word, downzoned areas, you know. And
there's definitely downzoning.
And I don't live or work in those kind of areas, but I see that a effect of those kind of areas, or the effect that it has on a city. So like one, I think I would pitch stopping that because of what it means for the rest of the city, and I think you've got to pull in more than density as an argument for that. And they talk about that in the article. So for me, I don't know if I'm answering the question.
You're not.
I wouldn't.
How would you pitch gradual upzoning? I didn't feel like you were.
But not by myself, I guess is the
There
answer.
you go.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. It's funny because
Sorry.
I guess that's just a thing that we're going to do every podcast now. Mike's going to hit the microphone with his coffee cup.
Sorry.
It's okay. That was really loud on my headphones. The last thing, for me, because we're working on a project and can't announce it yet, but we're going to be advocating for upzoning and some changing of uses. And so my approach is taking time. It takes time, and it has to be very small and not a big area. And I'd say at the block level, or by the project level. And then you look at a block level and look at how it's going to impact it. And then consensus building, getting other people on board with it, and just being a good partner with the city, seeing what their plan is, how it fits.
Yeah, this isn't really fair. Like, you're just kind of like summarizing what I was saying, because you kind of had like the opportunity to listen to me stumble around and kind of like make a more like professional sounding answer. But yeah,
You just hit microphones.
You're right. I think, yeah, you're exactly right. Not by yourself, consensus building, and not in terms of the whole city. Like,
and being patient. If you got a good project idea, I don't think you're just going to run out there and be like, yeah, we're going to upzone. And honestly, here's the thing. I think our cities are ready. And you shouldn't do it condescendingly. Our cities are already mostly promoting upzoning in some form or another. I think this article hits on that well. I don't know if any that are even here in Fremont they are. They're doing things that are promoting things like that. They might not be doing the way that you want them to, but you got to show them why it's working and then keep going. So I think that's...
Yeah.
What else do we got to talk about here?
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's it. And that's like where it's trending towards that already. Yeah. Not that there's no fight to be had, but there's some leverage there potentially.
Well, before you steal the weekly hypothetical.
Never happened in the history.
Never happened. Never. I mean, this is only the second one I've done. Gosh, I really don't have one.
Wow.
Okay. It's kind of lame. Okay. Yours was really good last week. We have...
It was 12 minutes long.
It was too long. Okay, I thought about giving a really big simple one and be like, okay, the one I did think of, and I was like, it'll be too short of an answer, is if like, let's do this one and get it out of the way as a warm-up one.
Okay.
So when we get two, this will be my makeup one. You get one more room the rest of your life.
Room?
Room. You're going to have one room the rest of your life. Bedroom.
Okay.
And you have to use it. Okay? And you only get to pick one color that it's going to be.
Oh, man.
That was it. I thought it'd be easier. But you only get one color.
Whoa. I thought you were going to go with something like, and you get 5 items to put in it or something.
No, that was
honestly,
yours.
that would have been easier than the color.
You named 5 items and tell me how you're going to use it in your afterlife. And you're like, that was too long last time. Just joking.
Well, this might be too long because I don't even know. I think if one color for a bedroom.
The rest of your life.
I think I'm going to go with some kind of lighter blue. Probably.
Why?
I don't know, because it's like homey without being like living roomy or kitcheny or like a hotel room, and it's colorful enough without being like overly colorful the way that like a bright orange or yellow or a pink, I thought about green for a second, but I just thought I think I'd be less likely to if there's color, like it, like you could do like a white, which I'm sure you're gonna say, or
That's why I thought it was easy.
a black would be weird.
Yeah.
But I think if you have to have one color, you should have it a little bit of color. But I think anything too bold or bright might get a little tiring after a while. So I'm gonna go with a kind of light blue, not like a baby blue, just like if you took like a blue crayon, and you just go a little lighter than that before you get to like sky or baby blue. I'm gonna be somewhere in between there, I think.
Yeah, it was a short answer for me. It was
White?
yes, definitely. Well, Katie and Mike and like anybody who knows me makes fun of me because I paint every room white.
Everything is white. Everything in Oscar's life, color-wise, on the
On
on the walls is
yeah.
white.
But because you can accessorize and bring color, and I like changing it up.
Sure.
And you know what? You can get any kind of white paint, and you can go get it right off the shelf. Okay,
point.
so that wasn't the hypothetical.
What?
That was
What are we
my
doing
one.
now?
That was my one easy one.
Oh, okay.
But you took 5 minutes, so maybe
Sorry,
that should be
I
it.
thought it was it. No, go for it. Let's do it. This was a quick pod, I think.
Okay, it was a quick pod.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you can stop listening if you want, please. But we're gonna do one more
Bye.
weekly hypothetical.
They're
But
leaving.
they're gonna leave now.
Yeah, I think so. But let's do it.
Let's do it
For the
Okay.
real fans.
Okay, you have to take. You get $1 million,
Word.
but the condition is, you also have to get like an all-inclusive expenses paid large mammal to keep as a pet.
Whoa. So I receive $1 million,
Yeah, that's the contingency.
but I have to keep a large mammal.
You have to get a large animal to keep as a
Forever?
pet forever. Yeah.
And so is the choice, do I take the money or not? Or is the choice is what
No,
animal do I take?
you take in the
Okay.
money because Chrissy's gonna be like, of course we're taking it.
Yeah.
But now what do we do with this large mammal?
And you don't get facilities for it?
No, yeah, all include. Yeah, that's
Oh.
all. And that's not out of your $1 million.
Okay.
Like, so it's controlled.
So you could have it in the house, in the yard?
Yeah, but it's got to be with you. It's got to,
Oh,
it's got to
man.
be
A large
no
mammal.
like putting it in the zoo or anything like that. This is my hypothetical.
There's a lot of factors here, like
Yeah.
where do you live and what will your neighbors think about it.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to go with a. I'm thinking giraffe. I think that's where I'm
Are
going.
you kidding me?
No.
That's what I was gonna say.
Really?
That's weird.
Yeah. It is weird.
Well-
Why?
Oh, you tell me why.
Oh.
No.
Well, for me, a lot of reasons. One, like a giraffe, I think is infinitely interesting. I said this before. Omaha has like one of the best zoos in the world, and to me, the most kind of like in awe that I am at the zoo is
Yeah.
with the giraffes, because the giraffe seems just so foreign, because there's no connection point. Like if you see like a bear, like not that a bear is not cool, but you also kind of know that like there's places around us where you would see a bear, and if you see like fish, cool, but they're kind of like far away from you, they're behind glass. But when you're at the zoo, like by the giraffes, it's really strange to me, because it's so different than anything you see in your life, and there's nothing like a giraffe anywhere near here. And then they just seem kind of like chill,
Yeah.
They seem like they're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
They're kind of tall. I don't know that they move like that much, so I don't know how much space you need for them. I think they run around and stuff, but like at the zoo, they're not in that big of an area. Like they're in a smaller area than our backyard, and they seem happy. So I feel like
that made me a little sad.
it did, yeah, I know. But I feel like if you have, and there's like 18 trees in our backyard or something. So
Oh,
I
our
feel
house- yeah, the house,
it
yeah.
eats. Does a giraffe eat out of a tree?
Yeah, they eat
Okay.
trees.
Well, okay.
At
So
least the
then
cartoons they
it'll
do.
be set. And a giraffe's just cool. It's chill.
Yeah,
It's just
I also
hanging out.
pick giraffes.
It's interesting.
One of the only variables I think of why I would pick it that you didn't mention is I don't envision myself touching the animal a lot.
Mm-mm.
So I'm like, oh, you don't need to touch a giraffe to like enjoy it.
What?
Like pet it, you know?
What animal do you?
Well, like you got a puppy, you got to pet the puppy, right?
Oh,
Like,
well, that's
you
not a
know-
large mammal, though.
No, but I mean like a mammal though. But I mean like
Yeah.
as pets, or like if I had a lion, I probably wouldn't want to touch a lion.
No. Well, there's a danger thing. The giraffe, I also don't think is gonna like kill me either.
Yeah.
Not
Okay,
that I want to
I'm-
fight a giraffe.
I'm
but-
not gonna go anywhere near it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's gonna cause you much problems to have
Yeah.
a giraffe.
One, like, can you imagine if you had like a backyard and you just got this giraffe walking around? And you're like, yeah, that's my giraffe. That's
Yeah. That would be interesting. You would be the coolest person in the neighborhood for
you
sure.
would. Well, thanks for listening. Tune in next week. Peace.
Peace.